Hello everybody and welcome to my channel and welcome to this my settings video. I'm going to show you my settings for version 5.2 which recently came out. My settings works really well for me and I want to show you my settings and I want to bring you some knowledge about what the settings does and what the impact of those are, for example, for the performance. I've done in the past 2 other videos of these, but since the last videos, by the way, thanks for the 10,000k views in the last video, you guys are amazing, it's a lot changed. Especially with the introduction of version 5.2 and in the meantime different hotfixes, and I run in the meantime since the last video different add-ons which have another impact on the performance. So let's further ado, let's dive into the video. First of all, my settings, I run an Intel Core i7 9700K, still not overclocked, an RTX 2070 Super and 32GB RAM. I'm not going over all the other things like the application information and sound, is really preferable for your own. So we are going straight to the display. Like I said, I have an RTX 2070 Super, I have a 1440p monitor running. I have blackout desktop disabled because if you enable it, I have a dual monitor system, then one monitor will be black and you won't want that. The out view main view is enabled, so your prepared is filling out the whole view. The FX AA is off. This really have a negative effect on your performance and you don't want that. The AA I've done 4 times MSAA. In the previous videos I've done on 8 times, but in the meantime I have a 1440p monitor, so 4 times is enough. The texture filtering I've done 16 times. You don't see any difference in performance if you put it lower, but you will see in the realism and how it looks. So if you put it on 8 times, everything is fine, and the texture resolution I put it on high. And the dynamic texture streaming I have disabled. VSync I have it on, and triple buffering I have it on inside the sim, and my target frame rate is unlimited, and I will show you how I kept my frames. The variable refresh rate I have it on off, but the wide view aspect ratio I have it on because everybody nowadays have a wide view monitor, and the mip-map VC panels is on for a little bit more realism inside your sim and everything looks more clear and more sharper. Now the world section, this is the thing which most people really struggle about because they put your settings too high. The level of detail radius, so how far everything will be rendered, is on high. That's quite enough for me, especially you only notice it when you are landing or departing, and then it's high enough and you can see far away. The tessellation factor, so how much is balanced between your CPU and GPU, I put it on high, so a little bit more to the GPU side. The mesh resolution I have it on 5 meters and the texture resolution on 30 because it's recommended by a lot of scenery developers. And the use high resolution terrain textures, I have this enabled because I really don't see any negative effect on your performance, but visual wise this have an effect. Now, the water details I have it on low because I fly in the sky, and the reflection I have only the clouds. The special effects I have them on high because this really does not affect your performance, but will have effect on your visuals. The scenery complexity on normal and the autogen and scenery dwell distance on high. The autogen vegetation is a little bit higher, very dense, because you don't see really impact of your performance for trees, for example, especially if you use Terraflora like me. And the autogen building I have on normal because this will have an effect on your performance. Now the road list is new since version 5.2. I have it on sparse, and the dynamic 3D autogen vegetation, you always need to turn it off. What this does, if you enable this, then the trees will go away with wind and will flow with wind, but you don't see it and it costs really a lot of performance. I don't have enhanced atmospheric on because I use Rex for the sky textures and the cloud textures, and I have the weather changed to 0 because ActiveSky does my weather. The cloud wall distance I have on 90 meters, and the cloud cover density for ActiveSky is on maximum. Now my lighting is, I have HDR enabled, but auto exposure I have it disabled because I really don't like the white glow which you constantly have if you, for example, zooming inside your cockpit or looking over your FMC and then come back up. And those are my brightness, bloom and saturation settings. This really is depending on your monitor, so don't copy them straight away, but tinker with them for the most realism inside your sim. Now the dynamic reflection I have it on medium. If you put it higher, this really impacts your performance. If you put it lower, you miss out a lot of realism, and medium is in between. Dynamic lighting is on, otherwise you don't see any lighting. And the display lens flare is not really realistic in my opinion, so I have disabled. Shadow quality and shadow dwell distance. This is really realism for me, so I put it on ultra. I take it for granted, the little bit loss of the performance. Next on the list is the ActiveSky settings, because ActiveSky can have a really negative effect on your performance if you don't set it up correctly. And there are really only 3 things which really have the impact on the performance, but some people will forget them. You go in options, the first thing, it's not really impact your performance, but the download interval, I put it really low because then you have the latest weather everywhere. But the thing that mostly impacts your performance is on the cloud options and the maximum cloud layers. You can see you have 0 to 20 cloud layers, and I have set it just on 3. For me personally, this is fine. I have enough cloud layers which look really realistic. And with 3, the impact of the performance is not really that high. Otherwise, if you put it on 4 or 5, then you get 5 cloud layers, but your GPU and your CPU need to render 5 cloud layers with the overcast situation. And it is really impacting your performance. The other thing is the minimum cloud dwell distance. This on 19. If you remember correctly, in my P3D settings that was also on 19, so those two need to match together. That's the best option. And the maximum cloud dwell distance is 110. This have the best balance between realism, how far you can look for clouds, and also the rendering of the clouds for your performance. So those are really the ActiveSky settings. Next on the list is the Skyforce settings. I really did not change a lot in this one. Over here, the 3D cloud model structure, I think it's all on default, and otherwise you need to pause the video to copy it over. Down here in the settings, in the resolutions, I only changed the 3D cloud to 2048, but the 0 and the moon to 1024, because mostly the zeros and the moon are very far away, so really high resolutions is not really applicable for me, and it saves a little bit of performance, but the clouds you're mostly close to, so I have that a little bit higher than the rest. And last but not least, an Nvidia control panel settings for prepared. You can enter them. This only, by the way, applicable for if you have an Nvidia video card. Right mouse click Nvidia control panel and it will open the menu. You go on manage 3D settings and the program settings, and you find, if you not have it here, via add the P3D X file. Then everything that you change is only applicable for the P3D X file. Now I changed here a couple of things. Bear in mind, these are my settings. Maybe some things will have no effect on the performance, but still I have them. And for me, the settings work really fine. So the low latency I have it on. The maximum frame rate I have it on 35. So I limit my frames inside NVIDIA control panel. And this means that P3D thinks it have unlimited frames, so it put all this resource for the frames, but the NVIDIA control panel block them off, and in this way you have much smoother performance than if you lock your frames inside P3D. Now the open LG render GPU for my GPU, the power management mode, put it on maximum performance. This is one of the most important things, so you enabled all the performance inside your GPU which you have for the best result and the best performance inside the sim. Shader catch, I have that off because P3D created its own shaders, so it's not necessary for my GPU to catch the shaders as well. And the texture filtering I have on, the negative lot bias I have allow, and the texture filtering quality on the high performance, and the linear optimization I have on. Then I have just one thing, the vertical syncs, use the 3D application settings. So, and then the last bit that I did, it's only applicable if you use Reshade like I do. I have the Lucas Cavantoni Reshade pack inside my sim. But if you have Reshade, then you need to change something in your CFG. It's not harming any performance, but it's make sure that the Reshade is not interfering with P3D. What you do, you go to the CFG and you go to hardware. And you go to the UIV hardware acceleration on default, and if you just update it to 5.2, this is on default on true, but you need to set it on false. If you put it on false, then Reshade and P3D work completely fine together, and you don't have any performance losses or any interference of the two softwares together, which makes sure that you don't have CTDs due to Reshade. So this one little tip, it's not really depending on your performance, but make sure you don't get any CTDs. So guys, those are my settings. It's really a quick video. I hope I bring you some knowledge about settings, what them does if you have low performance, and you can try them out, but bear in mind those are my settings, they work for my system. Every system is different, and even the system with the same hardware is different. So try them out, tinker with them, change them a little bit to the left or to the right, but try out to gain the best performance. I hope you liked this video. Please like the video, for more content in the future. And if you have more information regarding some settings, please drop them down in the comments so you can share it with the community. Maybe I can learn something about it, and so we help each other. So have a nice day and see you on the next one.